What's up YouTube? Jack Armstrong with Jack Daddy Customs and Jack Daddy Smokers. And today we're going to show you how I built this massive gravity fed smoker. Alright, now this is the fourth one of these gravity fed smokers that I've built. And the first one is this one. And now Peanut Witten owns this one, and it's probably cooked more meals for men's fellowship at churches than any other smoker in existence. This is my personal smoker. It's a big orange beast, but it's actually smaller than any of these other ones, and it's super efficient, and it cooks really well. And what makes these smokers so good is that they keep the moisture in the meat better than any smoker on the market. So if you want to make sure your meat doesn't dry out, like a gravity fed smoker like this is about the best that you can get. But also it really is a set it and forget it. So once you put the meat in there and shut the door, you don't have to open the door back up until you pull the meat off. What that means then is that if you got all that spare time, then you're gonna need something to do. You should go pick up Mystery in the Marsh. Mystery in the Marsh is a book that I just wrote not long ago, and it's a story that follows a couple of brothers that are out duck hunting in a marsh and find themselves kind of caught up in some drama and a little bit of a mystery. So, you know, go check it out. I think it'd be worth your time to read it. I'll put a link in the description. Now, that's enough talk about these smokers. Let's show you how to build it. The first thing we're gonna do is cut this out. So the cook chamber is gonna be like 32 inches wide, and it's gonna be like 40 inches tall, 20 inches long. I've got it measured out on this big sheet of steel. So we got 2 sheets of steel. It's gonna take more than this, but I've got some laying around, and I'm gonna put aluminum on the door. But this right here is gonna be like the main part. So we're gonna get it cut out into a big square, and then I'm gonna take it to a friend's house, and we're gonna bend it on his big metal brake, and that's gonna save me a lot of time. So the inside piece, we're gonna bend it so I don't have to weld up the inside corners, and then the outside piece, I'm gonna bend it as well, and I've got enough to go all the way around both sides and the back, but not come back around the front. So I'm gonna have to use a little piece of this to skin that front side, but that's okay, that's part of it. So we're gonna start working on the firebox now. Actually, this is the firebox, the coal box, and the chute. Basically down here, we've got a 10x8 box that I built, and this is all out of a 1/4 inch. Right here, I've got I found this at the scrapyard. This is a big chunk of 8x8 pipe. So square pipe. And it's square tubing, I guess, I don't know. But it's super thick. It's almost a 1/2 inch thick. And then I'm taking a 1/4 inch plate, and I'm building a 6x8 box around it. And that way, this smoker will outlast anything. Like the firebox will last. A lot of times in these smokers, especially if you're using a fan, like I think people were building them out of 1/4 inch metal to start with, and they were having to tear it apart and rebuild the firebox part because it would burn out. Even 1/4 inch metal, when you're using a fan, it's like a forge every time. But the way that they work, and I've got it all just spotted together. I'm gonna go back and weld it up. But the way that it works is you've got your chute with your charcoal. It'll come down to the firebox. There'll be a grate. So we got some angle that we're gonna cut, weld right there, and our grate will be able to slide in and out. But the charcoal sits right here over the fire, ready to just continually feed itself down. And the fire, the way the oxygen, the top will be sealed off so no oxygen can be up here. The only oxygen will come from where your tube goes out. We got a 4x4 tube. Again, this is some heavy stuff. It's over a 1/4 inch thick for our tube. That gets pretty hot too. You got hot air just blowing through there when you got a fan. And we've got the tube coming out. It doesn't go all the way through the smoker because we're gonna have a diverter plate across the top of it, spread our heat out evenly. But the oxygen is only that high. So, you know, in theory, your fire will only be about 4 to 5 inches hot. That's the hottest part of your fire. And then as the coals burn, they drop through the grate and new coal is ready to go. So that's how the firebox works. If I gave you any kind of advice, I would say overbuild this part. I built a couple of them out of 1/2 inch. This is actually gonna end up being about 3/4 of an inch thick. So never have to worry about it. Just overbuild it. we're gonna go ahead and weld this thing all the way up, all our seams everywhere. We're gonna weld it so it's one good, big, solid piece. We're gonna have to add a little bit to the top. This is the longest piece that I could buy from the scrap yard, just what they had. And it's still stinking expensive, but it's way cheaper than if I just bought this, and it's way easier than if I built it. All right, day 2, and what we're gonna do is start working on the frame. So you see I've already got a lot of it cut. And the best way that I found to be able to make this thing good and square, or at least the easiest way, is to put the skin that you've already got bent on your sawhorses or your welding table or whatever, and then build your frame inside of it without welding it to the skin. So just use the skin to keep everything square on the edges and stuff like that. And then once we get the frame all tacked up, we can take it out of the skin, weld it all the way around, put our inside in, and then slide the skin around it and weld up the skin. That's how I did my last one. The first one I didn't have a bender, so I had to just cut all of these pieces to measurement. So that took a little longer because I had to build my frame nice and square without the skin to go off of. And then I had to put my skin on it, weld it up. But if you've got the ability to break your skin like I did, and it makes the inside frame job super simple because you know what your dimensions are and you can just work off of the edges of your skin. And once we get these well, like I said, we'll pick it up out of the skin. And what we're gonna do now is make sure we got everything welded up all around the frame, and then we'll work on the firebox, making sure it fits right, framing out around the edges of it, lengthening the top, and then we'll work on the inside cook chamber next. We'll take the firebox back out, put the cook chamber in, and then slide the firebox in, and everything will be done minus the insulation and the skin. So that's what we're gonna do now. Hard part is pretty much done. This is all the figuring. Now we gotta do is just weld. Day 3, out here in the shop with the smoker, and the plan for today is to try to get this thing ready for the outside skin. I'm gonna put some extra pieces right here, like where the hinges will be, because your door is gonna be right here, and you don't want your hinges just to be on some sheet metal. So I'm gonna put some solid pieces of angle right there, and then that way I can weld through that angle, or through the sheet metal on the skin to hit that angle, and I can put my hinges on something solid, because the door is gonna be stinking heavy. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put the top on. You can see the top piece that I've got already cut. I bent it in my metal brake to put like just a 1/2 inch peak in it maybe. And what happens when the smoker gets hot, there's always some moisture, and I don't know if it's condensation, but it might just be moisture coming from the steam or the meat, whatever. But you know, it's gonna get up there on the top, and if you've got a peak, it'll help it run down to the edges instead of just pulling up and dropping right on your meat. But that's why I don't put my smokestack in the top either, because if you put your smokestack in the top, it's bad about dripping that nasty old black drip right on your meat. So if you put it out of the back, it's gonna make your smoker take up more space, but it's gonna be better because when it drips, it's just gonna run down the back wall instead of dripping on your meat. I'm not gonna show you me cutting and measuring all this. I'm just gonna weld it in there and then give you some close-ups so you can know, like if you're trying to build your own, you'll know how to do it too. But we're gonna get top, bottom baffle in, or the heat diverter, diffuser, I don't know what it's called, but it basically just makes it where that plate catches the majority of the heat so that it then is even as it comes around it. You know, I'm gonna leave probably about 2.5 inches all the way around on both sides. And then of course at the end where I weld over here, I'll show you in a minute, but there's gonna be like some, you know, gaps cut in it so that the heat can come up that side too. So hopefully we got even heat flowing all the way up the walls of this thing. The next thing we're fixing to do is to put the bottom skin on. So I already got this one while I got it flipped over. There's no insulation under this yet because before I put the skin around the outside, I put my insulation on. This is rock wool insulation. It's kind of expensive, but it does a real good job. It's got like a really high fire rating, and you know, you can put this in there, weld up your edges, and you ain't gotta worry about everything melting or burning up inside. It might smolder just a hair, maybe, but I don't think so. But I want to do it while it's upside down, and it's going to be easier to put my outside skin on while the smoker's upside down, because I can rest the skin on the 4x4s on the ground. And you'll see right here, that's where my grease drip's going to go. So I got that hole in the bottom of the smoker, and then this hole right here is where that'll be. And I've got a piece of 3/4 inch pipe that I'm gonna weld in that for my grease drain. And then what we're fixing to do now though is put on these rack holders. So I've got some angle, 1 inch angle, and they'll sit like this. And I weld them on there, on my lines, and that's what'll hold our shelves, our racks. I've got these spaced anywhere between 5 to 6 inches apart. And the reason I had to get some at 5 is because I wanted to get 5 shelves and not just 4. And if I went with 6 inches, I was gonna have to get just 4 shelves. So I've got them spaced, different spaces, but I've got enough space, and I got 5 of them. We're ready for the skin now, and I've got Terry Lee out here to help me. It's kind of heavy and it's a little awkward because you've got all your insulation shoved on the sides and stuff like that. So then when you slide the skin around it, sometimes it wants to catch the insulation. So it's good if you have an extra set of hands. Sometimes 2 or 3 is even better, but we're going to pack the insulation on the sides and then try to slide that skin in from the back side. All right, skin is on all the way around the whole smoker. I gotta weld up this side where the door is, but I'm gonna do that. We gotta lay it back down on its back, build the door, and then stand it up. I'll tell you why when we get to building the door. So what we're fixing to do now, put our insulation up here and then put the top piece on. Now is the time, if you wanna shove some more insulation down around your firebox, now's the time to do that, because we're about to weld this up. It's gonna be done as far as getting into the insulation. So, you know, I've already shoved a lot of pieces down in there, some like leftover pieces that didn't fit different places, and I've got them shoved into the, just to fill up the gap. We're gonna try to finish up all the fab work today, and that's gonna be the doors, all the doors, get them done, and the racks going in. So then all we'll have to do will be to grind it and to paint it and put the wheels on. We're gonna do that today too. We're gonna get the wheels on because I'm tired of, when I gotta move this thing, it is hard. And you're fixing to see that. We're gonna build the door, and when we build the door, the best way to do it on these smokers is to lay it down flat and then build the door where it's going. Because the door, like sometimes that frame is not just right, and then also your door might warp a little bit while you're building it. So what you wanna do is lay it down where it's gonna be. Now the gasket we're gonna use, you're gonna have leeway to get your door off 1/4 inch even. You'll be fine. But if you can lay it down flat and build it on the opening itself, then whatever out of square the smoker is, your door's gonna be the same way. And then that way you'll know that your door's gonna match just right, and your seal is gonna be that much more effective. So let's get this thing laid down. I got Terry Lee out here. She's gonna help me. She's a beast and she can do it. So I hurt my shoulder playing softball the other day and I'm struggling, but she can help me. I'm gonna lay it down on these 4x4s on the ground and get that door on top of it. If you put your hinges on with your door flat, it's not gonna give your door and gasket room to work. So we've got to have spacers, and we're gonna get like, you know, whatever gasket size you get, you'll need to get just a little bit less because you want your gasket to press. You just don't want it to press so flat that you know, it's not good. So you want to have some room there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use 1/4 inch spacers all the way around to lift this up, and then we're going to put our bullet hinges on the back side over there. Another day out here again, been doing a little bit of grinding on it, getting it just right on the corners. What we got to do now is work on our smokestack, and we're going to cut a hole out of the back of the smoker. And then we'll have to go on the inside and cut a hole too. It's gonna be a 4-inch piece of pipe coming out 9 in up the back side of the smoker, and we'll have a little flue on top. I usually like to put the smokestack right in between the top and the second shelf. So instead of having it at the very top, it works good. You know, it works out to about 6 inches down. is where the smokestack would come out. There's one more hole we got to drill in our smoker. That's going to be right here in the side of it, the top corner. And that's because we got our controls that's going to go through there. So we use like a barbecue guru or a flame boss. I like flame boss, but we're going to put the wires through here. So we're going to weld us a nipple, and then I got a brass nut and a rubber grommet, and we can feed our wires through there, our probes, temp probes, meat probes, those things, through that rubber grommet, tighten it down, and then it'll seal around it for the most part. I mean, you still have a little bit of leak when you're like starting it up and getting a heavy smoke going, but it's not enough to make a big difference. And it makes it way better than just shutting your wires in your door. That's not good for your wire.
All right, next thing we gotta do is build some shells. And I'm just using some 1 inch angle, and just making a square. I'm not cutting 45s, I'm capping one end with the other. Real simple, real quick. But then we're using this close mesh like this for the meat. If you got that wide open mesh, the meat wants to sit down through it too much. Or if you got the one that's like overlap. See, this is flat, you don't want the overlap. If the overlap is gonna make it really hard to get your meat off. It just wants to stick on it real bad. So this right here is flat and it's close, so you can slide, you know, like a big spatula or something up under there and get the meat off. So, all right, now the anti-tip pieces are a necessity. Some grills don't have them, and I feel sorry for the people that have them. What these are, you just use little pieces of 3/4, 1 inch. This might be 3/4, I don't know. You use channel, whatever you got, or angle, whatever you got. And then you put this about 1/4 inch over your rack up here close to the edge. And what happens is when you pull this out, instead of just flipping over, it catches it. So you can pull it out all the way to there and it'll stop right there. And then you can take your meat off the grill while it's out. Way better than not having them. If you don't have them, what people do is they just start taking racks out and having to set them on the table to get their meat off. But this way, you can pull the rack out almost all the way. It'll stay there while you get your meat, slide it back in, do the next one. So you gotta have some anti-tips. All right, I'm getting about done for the day because I'm getting stinking tired and it's hot. But here's the last thing that I've got to weld on this smoker. And it's this piece right here. It goes on the door. I put it in my metal brake and I bent it. This piece isn't like crucial, but it does make a big difference on the grease. So that's what this is, like a little grease drip. The key is you want to get it welded where it's just below this last rack. And that way, all the meat that you've got stacked close to the edge, if it drips, it's not going to drip straight down into the bottom of the door where the gasket will catch it. So when you open it, you just have a big grease surprise waiting on you. What'll happen is this will deflect it and it'll drip down into the pan, which will then drip down into the grease drain. So we're gonna get this welded. The main thing, make sure you put it where it's not gonna hit a rack, okay, just below that bottom rack.
All right, I know it's loud, but I got my fans going out the garage door kind of low, and today we're gonna paint. So what we've done is we sanded all of this smoker, doors and everything, got them hung up. We just sanded it with a DA sander, and then we taped off everything that we don't want to get painted. Then we wiped it down with some acetone, and then we blew it off one more time, just to get any like pieces of paper towel off of it. And now we're fixing to mix up our paint. We're gonna do it like a light blue color, that's what he wanted. And so we're gonna mix the paint up and then start spraying. I've got a spray gun, and we're gonna try to put 2 coats. It's acrylic enamel auto paint, and we're gonna try to put 2 coats on it, spray it, give it about 15-20 minutes, spray another coat, and it should be good to go. And now we're gonna put the aluminum on the front of the door and get it flipped over and work on the gasket. So this is the gasket. The silicone gasket is way better than rope. It's way better than felt for the cook chamber. We're gonna use felt for the other ones. I'll show you that in a minute, but this silicone is way better for the cook chamber. You can see, that's it. It's got a little tadpole is what it's called. This is where you can order it. If you're doing your own, right there. Island Outdoor LLC. Get that ordered, and we're just gonna drill some holes in that, and then pop rivet it. Yeah, it'll bend around the corners just like that. So we'll cut the tadpole and then this part would just bend around the corner. And the next day, everything is dry, everything's on there how it's supposed to be. And today we're gonna finish this thing up. This is a huge smoker. It's gonna cook a lot of meat, but it can't cook meat unless we finish it. So today is the day, and we've got everything we need right here to finish it up. So just run you through. We gotta put a handle on the front door. We got gaskets for the firebox and the charcoal chute. We got a ball valve. This is stainless steel ball valve. That's for our air intake by the firebox. Latches, smaller for the firebox and the chute, and big latches for the big cook chamber door. We've also got a piece of aluminum that I put in the metal brake and bent out 2 inches on the bottom, and then this is probably like 10 inches left, something like that. We're gonna put, this is crucial, okay? We're gonna put this right above the firebox. That's the only place on this smoker that gets hot to the touch, really. Everything else is insulated. That's insulated. It's just right there by the firebox, and there's not much space in between it, so it gets pretty warm, and it can get hot enough to melt that paint. So instead of coming back and painting or having a big rust spot right there, we'll put this on front of it, and it keeps it from looking bad, and it looks good anyway. And then, of course, we got logos to make this thing look sweet. So yeah, let's get all this stuff put on there, and it'll be a wrap. And finally, the finished product. Surely you didn't think we're going to show you what we built without showing you what it can do. So let's get this brisket off and let's give it a sample. You got to get a good knife, and these right here, Williams knives. This is a bird knife, so they make a bunch of different knives. I like a good knife, so I like Benchmade. I like Microtech. So that's a Kershaw, so it's a cheap knife, but it's a good knife. Let's see. There's a Benchmade. I like Benchmade. They're sweet. I got a Microtech out in the front. And this is also a Williams knife. Chris Williams. You guys got to go check him out. He makes some sweet knives. He makes like big butcher knives too. This is a bird knife. Got a long handle, short blade. Getting in there like resting out your doves or your ducks is awesome. We're going to use it today to test out this brisket. What's the best part, Casey?
Ooh, I like to go right down the middle and take off. Yeah. Pretty sharp.
Yeah. Give it a taste. That's all we need. Just a taste. Jack Daddy Smokers. Build you one.